Imagine opening your front door to a package writhing with live insects. The first chilling sign that someone out there wants to silence you permanently. My name is Mike. Welcome to The Scary Secret. If you like stories like these, please like and subscribe. We appreciate all your support. Now, on with the show. It was a quiet summer morning in Natick, Massachusetts, the kind where the suburbs hum with the gentle rhythm of everyday life. Ina and David Steiner, a couple who'd been married for over 3 decades, were already at work in their home office. For more than 20 years, they'd built a small but influential online newsletter called EcommerceBytes. It wasn't glamorous, no flashy studios or viral videos, just honest reporting on the world of online selling. Ina handled the news side, digging into the nitty-gritty issues that plagued sellers on big platforms like auction sites and marketplaces. Fees that seemed unfair, policies that changed overnight, algorithms that buried small business in favor of the giants. David managed the operations, keeping the site running smoothly. Their readers? About 600,000 of them. Mostly everyday folks trying to make a living online, frustrated with the system and grateful for a voice that called out the problems. But it wasn't just the little guys tuning in. Executives from those very companies and even Wall Street types kept an eye on what the Steiners published. After all, in the cutthroat world of e-commerce, information was power. Ina had always been the tenacious one, the reporter with a knack for spotting the cracks in the facade. She'd read about seller complaints, interview experts, and sometimes critique the decisions of the big players. It wasn't personal, it was journalism, or at least as close as you could get in a niche like this. But in the digital age, words have a way of rippling out farther than you expect. And sometimes they make waves that come crashing back. That morning, August 8, 2019, started like any other. Coffee brewing, emails pinging, but then the notifications flooded in, dozens of them. Ina checked her inbox and frowned. Confirmation emails for newsletters she'd never signed up for. Sin City Fetish Night? The Satanic Temple? The Communist Party USA? It was bizarre, almost comical at first. "David, look at this," she called out, half laughing, half confused. But as the sign-ups kept pouring in, hundreds now, it stopped being funny. Who would do this? Was it a glitch? A prank from some disgruntled reader? They tried to brush it off, unsubscribe where they could, but by afternoon, things took a darker turn. Their Twitter accounts, used mostly for promoting articles, lit up with direct messages, harsh ones. "Shut up or else." Vulgar insults that made Ina's stomach churn. Words too crude to repeat in polite company. Threats laced with menace. Anonymous accounts spewing hate. David paced the room, his face paling. "This isn't random," he said. "Someone's targeting us. But who?" They'd dealt with angry comments before. Sure, people upset about an article, sellers venting frustration. But this felt coordinated, like a swarm descending all at once. 3 days passed in a blur of unease. The Steiners kept publishing, trying to focus on work, but the knot in their guts tightened. Then, on August 11th, the phone rang. A voicemail from an unknown number. Something about an unfulfilled order for a wet specimen. Ina played it back, her brow furrowing. David grabbed the phone and called the number. A lab, apparently. "It's a pig fetus," he whispered after hanging up, his voice hollow. "Preserved in fluid. They're saying we ordered it. Ina's heart sank like a stone. This wasn't just digital noise anymore. This was physical, invasive. Someone knew their address, their phone number. And a pig fetus? It reeked of symbolism, a grotesque warning. They called the police right away, explaining the barrage of sign-ups, the threats, now this. The officer arrived, notepad in hand, listening patiently as they recounted the events. It sounded odd, he admitted, maybe a hacker or kids messing around. But as they stood there in their living room taking notes, his eyes flicked to the front door. "There's a package out there," he said casually. Ina froze. David stepped outside and brought it in. A nondescript box. The officer suggested they open it carefully. Inside, a mask. Not just any mask. A bloody pig's head from that horror movie, Saw. The one where a twisted killer traps people in games of torture and death. Ina's hands trembled as she stared at it. "This is no prank," she whispered. The room spun. Who would send something so sadistic? The police took photos, bagged the evidence, promised to look into it. But as they left, the Steiners were alone again, the house feeling smaller, more vulnerable. That was just the beginning. Over the next week, the nightmare escalated, each day bringing a new layer of terror. First, another box arrived. Live cockroaches, hundreds of them, skittering and hissing when David pried it open. He slammed it shut, gagging, as Ina backed away in horror. Then, spiders wriggling in a container that burst open on their porch. Magazines showed up, not at their door, but at the neighbors', addressed to David with explicit labels that made the whole street whisper. Online things got worse. Their home address posted on social media, advertised as the site of a massive yard sale. Strangers started showing up, knocking, asking about deals that didn't exist. Then came the listings for parties, raunchy invitations with their phone number attached. Calls poured in at all hours, crude voices on the line. But the real gut punch came midweek. A book arrived, neatly packaged, Surviving the Loss of a Spouse, addressed to David. Ina's breath caught. This wasn't harassment anymore. This was a death threat, plain and simple. "They're saying they're going to kill me," she said, tears welling. David pulled her close, but his own fear mirrored hers. A few days later, the final blow of that week, a funeral wreath, elaborate and expensive, delivered with a card that read condolences for a loss that hadn't happened yet. It confirmed everything. They weren't just being annoyed, they were being hunted. The Steiners' world shrank to the walls of their home, but even there, safety felt illusory. Nights were the worst. Darkness pressed in, every creak a potential intruder. They started sleeping in separate rooms, a heartbreaking precaution. If someone broke in, at least one could call for help or escape. David installed extra security cameras, motion lights that flooded the yard at the slightest movement. But outside felt no better. David noticed a van idling nearby one afternoon, then a car tailing him on errands. Was it paranoia, or were they really being followed? The police returned, sympathetic but skeptical at first. Small town like this could be locals pulling a stunt, one officer suggested. But the Steiners knew better. This was calculated, professional almost, like psychological warfare designed to break them. Who had they angered so deeply? Ina racked her brain, scrolling through old articles. Criticisms of platform fees, exposés on seller bans, pieces that poked at the powerful. In the e-commerce world, grudges could run deep, but this felt like corporate terrorism, sadistic in its precision. For 3 agonizing weeks, the onslaught continued. chipping away at their sanity. They barely ate, hardly slept. Friends offered support, but how do you explain a nightmare like this? The Steiners clung to each other, vowing to uncover the truth. Little did they know the threads of this web stretched far beyond their quiet suburb, into boardrooms and shadows where power played dirty. Deep in the gleaming halls of eBay's San Jose headquarters, where billions in online transactions flowed like digital rivers, a storm was brewing in the spring of 2019. It all started with a single email that pinged into the inbox of the company's CEO. The message contained a link to an article in a modest online newsletter called EcommerceBytes, run by a couple out of their Massachusetts home. The piece dissected the CEO's compensation package. Nothing earth-shattering, just the kind of scrutiny that comes with leading a public company. But in the high-pressure world of Silicon Valley, where reputations are as volatile as stock prices, it hit like a personal affront. Frustrated, the CEO forwarded it to his chief communications officer with a note that carried the weight of expectation. The communications chief, a sharp operator skilled in managing narratives for the $74 billion e-commerce behemoth, didn't let it slide. "We are going to crush this lady," he texted back, his words crackling with intent. The lady in question was Ina Steiner, the newsletter's editor, whose straightforward reporting on seller fees, policy changes, and corporate missteps had earned her a loyal following among eBay's users. But to the executives, her words were thorns in their side, especially as Wall Street analysts and investors kept tabs on every ripple in the company's image. A month later, as the article's echo lingered, the CEO fired off another message: "Take her down." It wasn't a direct order for violence, but in the charged atmosphere of corporate loyalty, it was fuel for a fire that would rage out of control. These exchanges didn't stay at the top. They trickled down to the company's global safety and security unit, a team designed to protect eBay's assets from real threats like fraud and theft. Leading it was the senior director of security, a man with a background in law enforcement and intelligence, who saw an opportunity to prove his value. He gathered his crew in a conference room overlooking the sprawling campus. 7 operatives in total, including a couple of ex-cops, a former nanny turned analyst, and others with skills in surveillance and ops. Pinning a map of Natick, Massachusetts, the sleepy suburb where the Steiners lived and worked, to the wall, he laid out the plan. This wasn't about debate or dialogue. It was about silencing criticism through fear. Whatever it takes, the communications chief had emphasized in a follow-up, urging ashes where influence once stood. The team dubbed their operation something innocuous, but the intent was anything but. They started with the digital front, leveraging anonymous accounts and burner phones purchased with company funds. From their desks in California, they orchestrated a barrage of unwanted newsletter signups, flooding the Steiners' inboxes with bizarre subscriptions, fetish events, satanic groups, political extremists. It was designed to annoy at first, to chip away at their focus, but soon the harassment escalated into outright threats. Vulgar direct messages on Twitter, anonymous voices hissing, "Shut up or else," each one crafted to instill paranoia. The security director oversaw it all, his team high-fiving over the chaos they unleashed from afar. Yet digital barbs weren't enough. The plan called for something more tangible, more invasive. They scoured online vendors, placing orders for grotesque deliveries straight to the Steiner's door. A preserved pig fetus in fluid, symbolizing death and decay. A bloody pig mask from an infamous horror flick, evoking traps and torture. Live cockroaches and spiders, wriggling in boxes meant to burst open and infest their home. Magazines rerouted to neighbors, smearing the couple's reputation in their own community. Then the psychological daggers, a book on grieving the loss of a spouse, implying Ina's impending demise, followed by an elaborate funeral wreath with a condolence card for a tragedy yet to occur. As the Steiners reeled in Natick, the team in San Jose monitored their reactions, feeding off the distress like a twisted game. But the security director wanted more. He craved boots on the ground. In mid-August, he dispatched a small squad to Boston, company expenses covering flights, hotels, and rentals. One operative, a young intelligence analyst with a knack for blending in, checked into the Ritz-Carlton under an alias. She rented a Dodge Caravan, then a sedan, and began tailing David Steiner on his daily errands. Cruising the quiet streets, she noted his routines, snapping discreet photos, her heart pounding with the thrill of the hunt. The goal? Install a GPS tracker on the Steiners' car to monitor their every move, turning their lives into a constant surveillance state. The trip wasn't without hitches. David, already on edge from the deliveries, spotted the suspicious vehicles lingering nearby. A van idling too long, a car following him through turns. Paranoia turned into action. He confronted one, jotting down license plates that would later become crucial threads. Back at the hotel, the team huddled, adjusting plans. They brainstormed pranks like delivering a fake bomb or vandalism, but settled on amplifying the cyber side, posting fake ads for yard sales and explicit parties at the Steiners' address, drawing strangers to their door at all hours. Meanwhile, in San Jose, the security director kept the higher-ups in the loop, albeit vaguely, assuring them the problem was being handled. The communications chief's words echoed, "I want to see ashes." It was a culture of unchecked power, where loyalty blurred into criminality, and resources meant for protection were weaponized against critics. The team reveled in their secrecy, nicknaming themselves after resilient pests, cockroaches perhaps, indestructible and insidious. But as the weeks wore on, cracks appeared. One delivery, the funeral wreath, was traced back to a gift card bought at a supermarket near eBay's headquarters. The analyst in Boston got a call from local police while at the Ritz, inquiring about the rental vehicles. She stalled, promised a call back, then bolted town, heart racing as the news tightened unnoticed. The Steiners, fortified with cameras and police reports, refused to back down, their newsletter still publishing amid the terror. In the shadows of the tech giant, this vendetta exposed how far some would go to protect an image, turning a simple critique into a symphony of fear. The operatives returned to California, mission seemingly accomplished, but the web they wove was starting to ensnare them too. Little did they know, the Steiners' resilience was just the beginning of the unraveling. As the harassment intensified in those sweltering August days of 2019, Ina and David Steiner clung to their resolve, documenting every twisted delivery and anonymous threat. Their home in Natick had become a fortress of fear, but they weren't about to let it silence them. With police reports stacking up and security cameras capturing shadowy vehicles, the couple pieced together clues that pointed far beyond a random prankster. A funeral wreath traced back to a gift card purchased at a California supermarket, rental car plates leading to a luxury hotel in Boston. It all screamed organization, resources, and motive. But whose? The Steiners turned to the FBI, handing over their dossier of dread. Little did they know the trail led straight to the heart of Silicon Valley, where eBay's gleaming empire hid a dark underbelly. The investigation kicked off quietly, agents sifting through digital breadcrumbs. Subpoenas flew to online vendors for order records. IP addresses unmasked anonymous accounts, and phone logs revealed a web of communications stretching across the country. By September, the feds had zeroed in on eBay's global security team, a unit meant to safeguard the company, now weaponized against critics. At the helm was James Baugh, the senior director of safety and security, a former intelligence operative with a penchant for aggressive tactics. He'd assembled a rogue squad: David Harville, his right hand in global resiliency; Brian Gilbert, an ex-cop turned security manager; Stephanie Popp, the sharp-eyed intelligence lead; Philip Cook, another former police captain supervising ops; Stephanie Stockwell, the global intelligence manager; and Veronica Z., a contract analyst crunching data. Together, they executed a meticulously planned campaign, codenamed with irony, all under the guise of protecting eBay's brand. But the spark? It came from the top. Former CEO Devin Wenig, frustrated by the Steiners newsletter critiquing his multi-million-dollar pay and company policies, had texted his chief communications officer, Steve Wymer, "Take her down." Wymer, a slick PR maestro, responded with venom. "We're going to crush this lady." He looped in Baugh, urging, "Whatever it takes," and promising to handle any fallout. Wymer's text escalated. "I want to see ashes." It was corporate warfare, greenlit from the C-suite, where loyalty trumped legality. Baugh and his team took it as carte blanche, blending cyber tricks with real-world terror to break the Steiner spirit. The arrests came like a thunderclap in June 2020. Federal agents swooped in on the 6 initial suspects: Baugh, Harville, Popp, Stockwell, Z, and Gilbert, charging them with conspiracy to commit cyberstalking and witness tampering. Cook followed soon after. The indictments painted a chilling picture: anonymous threats, grotesque packages, surveillance trips to Natick, even attempts to install a GPS tracker on the Steiners' car. As police closed in back in 2019, the team had scrambled to cover tracks, deleting text, fabricating stories for eBay's internal probe, misleading investigators. One operative, during the Boston stint, has posed as a documentarian to deflect suspicion, but the evidence was ironclad: burner phones bought with company cash, travel receipts, digital footprints that no amount of deletion could erase. The trials unfolded in Boston's federal courthouse, a stark contrast to eBay's sunny California HQ. One by one, the defendants pleaded guilty, their courtroom apologies ringing hollow against the Steiners' victim statements. Ina and David recounted the sleepless nights, the eroded trust, the business hit from the ordeal. "They stole our sense of safety," David told the judge, his voice steady but edged with pain. Prosecutors laid bare the conspiracy, how Baugh masterminded it. Harville led the on-ground ops. Gilbert and Cook brought their law enforcement know-how to evade detection. Popp and Stockwell handled intel and cyber harassment. Z crunched the creepy details. Sentences rained down, reflecting roles in the nightmare. James Baugh, the ringleader, got the harshest: 57 months in federal prison, nearly 5 years, plus a $40,000 fine, handed down in September 2022. David Harville followed with 24 months and $20,000. Philip Cook, the ex-cop, drew 18 months in prison, followed by a year of home confinement. Stephanie Popp served 12 months behind bars. Brian Gilbert, after time served, got a year of supervised release and a $20,000 fine. Stephanie Stockwell and Veronica Z each received a year of home confinement, their lighter sentences acknowledging lesser direct involvement, but no less culpability. Yet the higher-ups slipped the net. Devin Wenig and Steve Wymer weren't charged. Prosecutors cited insufficient evidence linking them directly to the criminal acts, despite their incendiary texts. Wenig resigned amid the scandal, his messages deemed inappropriate by eBay's board, but he walked away unscathed legally. Wymer was fired, but landed on his feet as CEO of the Boys and Girls Club of Silicon Valley, rubbing shoulders with local politicos who defended his character. Infuriating, Ina called it, as the couple pursued a civil suit against them, eBay, and the convicts, seeking justice where the criminal system fell short. That case drags on, with a trial slated for 2025, promising more revelations. eBay itself faced the music in January 2024, charged with multiple counts of stalking, witness tampering, and obstruction. In a deferred prosecution deal, the company coughed up a $3 million fine, the max under the statutes, and agreed to 3 years of independent monitoring. It was an admission of a toxic culture where brand protection morphed into terror. "We left no stone unturned," said the U.S. Attorney, emphasizing accountability. eBay issued apologies, vowing reforms, but for the Steiners, it was cold comfort. In the end, the scandal peeled back the facade of tech giants, showing how unchecked power can corrupt. The Steiners emerged scarred but unbroken, their newsletter thriving as a beacon for sellers. Baugh and his crew paid with their freedom, a cautionary tale of crossing lines for corporate masters. But as shadows linger over Wenig and Wymer, one wonders, in the boardrooms of tomorrow, will lessons stick, or will history repeat in a new digital disguises?